Hey guys! So today I want to talk with you about the new unique items that we got with the Flames of the Nether DLC. We got our hands on two new armors, being the Living Vines armor and the Golden Piglin armor, as well as two ranged weapons, the crossbow Pride of the Piglins and the bow Weeping Wine Bow, two melee weapons, the bone Cudgel, or however it is pronounced, and the mechanized Sawblade. So let's first start by just looking at the items by themselves and then go over some enchantment options. So let's start with the Living Vines armor. This has the health potions heal nearby allies effect, which is not too useful. Second, we have the traps and poisons nearby mobs when rolling, which is in itself pretty strong. I've tested this one out, this is really a strong enchantment. And then it comes with the reduced roll cooldown. I have to say that this synergizes very well, and I'm pretty confident that this is an okay armor. You can actually do some stuff with it. So let's go over to the next one. Here we have the Golden Piglin armor, and this one has the reset cooldown on potion use with 50% artifact damage and can get consumable on potion use. So we have basically a synergy between using a potion and getting something out of it while also resetting our artifact cooldown and getting more artifact damage. Now as a base concept this sounds very nice, but the usefulness is debatable, I'd say. Because the potion just has such a high cooldown, you might get off some quick bursts, but then again, what artifact is out there that deals a lot of damage but has a high cooldown so that it's worth using this? I am not too sure about that. Starting with the ranged weapons, we have the Pride of the Piglins with a chance to fire piercing bolts and wind up attack. Now wind up attacks work in a way that if you don't attack for a while they stack up some charges, up to 5, and when you then start firing they fire these 5 attacks really fast, and after that they go back to a slower speed. So this is basically what wind up attack means. So you can basically dish out a quick burst of damage and then switch back to melee combat or whatever. That's actually pretty nice, but I don't think that the fire piercing bolts enchantment on level 1 is that useful for this weapon. Then we have the Weeping Wine Bow. Now this one has charged arrows after roll, and this is actually pretty good. It also has a second effect that isn't shown here, so I'm going ahead and equipping this one just to show you what it does. And if you shoot the arrow, no matter if it's a charged arrow or a normal arrow, it leaves a trail of poisonous gas behind it. But we will have a look at that later. Let's go over to the melee weapons, starting with the Bone Cudgel. We have great pushback and extra damage to illagers. Now great pushback doesn't do much and extra damage to illagers does even less, so this in itself is not that great, but the damage of the weapon is pretty good, and it only has a 2-hit combo. We will get to that when we talk about the enchantments, but this might actually be something. And then we have the mechanized Sawblade. Now we have the long continuous attacks, and this is this rolling makes the next attack stronger, is from the gilded stat that we have here. So we basically only have this long continuous attacks. For the mechanized Sawblade, there isn't too much special about this weapon, except that you can interrupt the combo of it, which ties into the enchantments, which we will go over later. But I also made a more detailed video about the mechanized Sawblade. I suggest you highly to check this one out, as this contains all the information you need on this weapon. So when we're talking about enchantments, let's have a look at the Vines armor. As it traps and poisons nearby mobs when rolling, a very useful enchantment is the Poison Focus. And yes guys, this really works together. Let's first put on multi-roll, as I feel that this could be very useful for this armor. And while we have it, just grab some cooldown, there was just no better option there. Let's leave this out for a second and just have a look at how much poison damage we actually do with this. So you can see if we roll here we do 145,000 ticks of poison damage. And now let's put on the Poison Focus, which increases our poison damage by 75%. And let's just roll again next to an enemy. And suddenly we do 250k ticks. So this actually increases the damage by a lot and makes it more viable. Now if you synergize that with the Weeping Vines bow that does poison damage, I'm thinking that you could actually do a poison build here. Maybe you can also use the Seeds artifact from the Jungle DLC, there could be something. And now we talk about the Golden Piglin armor. Now I really don't have a good one here, I can put another cooldown on it, and when we're using potions anyways we can just put a potion barrier on it as well. This is pretty fine. The middle slot, to be honest, it's a bad slot. Beast Surge is, yeah, it synergizes with the health potions I guess, but then again if you use pets you don't really need artifact cooldown, so again we can use Poison Focus here, and then you could also use the seeds maybe. I don't know. What we get when we use this armor is you can, for example, just use your high cooldown artifacts and then use your potion, and they instantly reset. And that's it. And now you have a super long potion cooldown that is even longer than your artifacts, and you can't do it again. So I don't really know on what type of artifacts you could use that armor. I don't even need to go into any map to test this one out. I don't like. I get the idea of this item, but I don't think it works in the current game. So yeah, let's move on. Next up, Pride of the Piglins. I don't have a necessarily good one here. I would go with multi-shot and maybe some extra damage by adding power and then chain reaction maybe. Let's give it a try. Now, as you can see on the top left, we have our wind-up attacks. Now if you hold down your right mouse button, you will see that you quickly fire out all of these 5 bolts and then they regenerate again. You can see that this is actually a big burst of damage. I think that this weapon can have some potential. I like the idea of just having a quick high damage burst and then revert back to your normal playstyle. But I'm just thinking that it is not strong enough and just there are better options than the Pride of the Piglins. Let's move on to the Weeping Vine Bow. Now, as I already said, it has another poisonous effect here. And since this poison cloud will travel along with your arrow, I'm thinking that piercing shots is actually really great on it. And we can also use a poison cloud effect on it as well, because those stack. If you have both poison effects on top of each other, the enemy basically takes twice the damage. Once from your trail and once from your poison cloud itself. And then we just add multi-shot to it to have even more poison everywhere. Now if we would wear this armor, we could boost up our poison damage as well, but for the sake of just showcasing the single item, I won't do that now. If I find a pretty powerful build combining some of these items, I will let you know in a future video. So let's have a look how powerful this actually is. Now the poison trail doesn't do that much damage. The bow itself also isn't too powerful. It looks impressive, but the damage it does is not. I mean, this is still Apocalypse plus 25, so they're supposed to not die that quickly. But then again, this doesn't look very effective, does it? So I can see potential in a combination maybe. I will try that out as soon as I have the chance to do that. But as of now, the Weeping Vine Bow just doesn't hit the mark. Next, let's have a look at the Bone Cudgel. Now, as I said, if you use this weapon, you have a 2-hit combo. Doesn't look too impressive. It's also pretty slow, so you definitely need to use a mushroom. But the reason why I think that this could be something is we can add swirling and shockwave, as well as critical hit, just for some even higher damage. And if we now go ahead and hit the dummy, you can see we have one, very big crits, and second, every second hit, proc swirl and shockwave. Now if we use a mushroom, we actually go at a decent speed. It's still comparably slow to like the double axis or something, but we're also dealing very high amounts of damage. Now, I don't know if that justifies it, but we'll have a look at it. So here we are again in the Basalt Delta, and let's start hitting some enemies there. Like every second hit is really a big thing, and we're actually taking down enemies reasonably fast. And if that second hit is a crit, look at that. It was like 3 million damage. I don't think it will be a top tier DPS weapon, but I can see this weapon being at least somewhat viable here. Like you could enchant it, and as soon as you have an ancient hunt where most of the enemies are illagers, you could switch to that weapon to deal some juicy extra damage. So I quickly loaded into high block halls just to see how much more damage we actually do. And ooh, that was a huge number. Might actually be worth it to use it on the pillager generated maps. This is quite some juicy extra damage here. 11 and 9 million crits. I don't know if these numbers are accurate. The game sometimes had the issue that numbers when you one-shot kill an enemy were inaccurate. But if these numbers are true, this is some great damage. Here we have an elite pack. Let's see how that works. Actually pretty good. And again guys, remember this is Apocalypse plus 25. We're dealing super high amounts of damage while still taking in all of that damage. We can just tank it. I think this weapon is good. Yep. It's a bit slow, but definitely playable. And finally we have a look at the mechanized Sawblade. Now, I already enchanted this one as I used it before when I found it and then just kept upgrading it. I'm not too happy with the third slot because we don't really benefit from exploding. Something like Radiance would be better here, but I will still show the weapon to you anyways. If you hold your attack down, nothing really happens, and also no swirling is procced. Now if you interrupt the attack yourself, you can see you proc swirling, you proc shockwave. And if you do it just in the right timing, you can proc it quite often. So now, as you can see here in the background, this is where the mechanized Sawblade really shines, in destroying bosses. You can dish out a lot of damage very quickly. This is basically all I have to say about the mechanized Sawblade. If you want more detailed info, as I said, check out the video. It is also the first link down in the description. Just click on that and you get a summed up video about all things you need to know about the weapon. So in the end, I'm quite satisfied with what we got. We have a few weapons and armors that show potential here, and I'm excited to find out if they really stand the challenge of Apocalypse plus 20 and the Ancient Hunts. Now I hope you liked this showcase of all the new uniques that we got with the new DLC, and as this is all for today, I thank you all for watching and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!